I've seen situations where my own escort has been killed. You know, when your escort is killed, at that point of time, tempers are running very high.
Correct.
You know, so you have to sort of balance it out. You have to ensure that things don't go out of hand.
Why do you think that DM is such a hated figure?
Not hated. I think people are just plain jealous. Because everybody a lot of people in the media, a lot of people in academia, they all tried for this service. I'm sorry, I'll be offending a lot of people. But before joining the IAS, I had not heard of Purulia, I had not heard of Kalimpong, I had not heard of Ghatal. So, the beauty of this service is that you end up in places that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
In terms of building consensus, I find nobody better than N.D. Tiwari.
Achha, and
N.D. Tiwari was the person who could build a lot of consensus. I mean, I've seen him on the same day. He would be having a meeting with Brinda Karar, listening to her against Baba Ramdev, against Patanjali, and next day having tea again with Baba Ramdev. And I think liberalization happened because there were a lot of bureaucrats who were very, very keen to bring about this change. See, whether you look at, and very positive ministers, I mean, take Arun Shourie, for instance, and amongst bureaucrats, I mean, whether it's Mr. Pillai or whether it is, the Commerce Secretary, Kullar. So a lot of Mr. Bajal, Mr. P.K. Basu, there were a lot of liberal people who were convinced that yes, the nation needs to open up.
ये बात हमेशा उठती रहती है that West Bengal cadre officers barely are either allowed to come to the center or want to come to the center.
No, I think we want to come to the center. The CM is not very encouraging of that thing, and that is where I think and I have written about it and I've argued about it, that we should not be the movement to the center. It should be a matter of right. It is not a matter of favor either of the state government or the government of India.
Hello and welcome to this fresh episode of The Officer's Desk, a new show on The Print where we break down the Indian bureaucracy for our viewers at The Print who have for years shown so much interest in the workings of the IAS, the IPS and all the other civil services, which is exactly what in fact prompted us to start this show, where week after week we have a retired civil servant come to our show and share with us the so many rich perspectives they have on how the Indian state really works. And I don't think there can be a better person to explain and to break down the Indian bureaucracy than Mr. Sanjeev Chopra. Why? Because he was the director at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy for Administration, LBSNAA, which actually trains young civil servants, particularly IAS officers, for the next 30 years of their life. Welcome to The Print, sir.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be at The Print.
In fact, a lot of our viewers will be very, very familiar with you, not just your books, but also the columns that you write for The Print. Sir, you joined the IAS in 1985. Tell us a little bit about your life before this UPSC exam that then changed your life. What were you studying? Where were you raised? Tell us a little bit before.
Well, I don't think there was a sea change in my life before and after. I was working in the Economic Times when I took the exam.
Achha, so you were a journalist?
I was a journalist. Okay. I was a trainee journalist with the Times of India from 82 to 83. And then after, doing 3 months in all the various sections of the newspapers, I was assigned to the Sunday section of the Economic Times.
Okay.
And it was a very nice time that I had close to where the print office is now, at the 7 Bahadur Zafar Marg. So yes, and then the fact that my father was in the BSF, had earlier been in the State Police Service, and I grew up in a almost, one can say, civil services environment. So it was not so much of a sea change for me. This was the lifestyle that I knew. This was the lifestyle that I was most comfortable with. So it's not a major transition for me in that sense.
So were you raised in Punjab?
I was raised in Punjab. I was raised in the BSF campus and the Punjab Armed Police campus at Jalandhar Cant. Most of the time, because the father went out for posting, but we retained our house there. So that's where I did my schooling. That's where I did my college. That's where I grew up. That's where I learned horse riding. That's where I learned
so you were
swimming.
not the Saint Stephen type.
What do you mean St. Stephen's type?
Because a lot of civil servants back in the day were the St. Stephen's type.
Yes.
They
Actually, I wanted to join Stephen's, but I wasn't 16 by the time I'd done my 11th. So you had to be 16 years old to join Delhi University.
Okay.
This stipulation was not there in Punjab. So that's, I don't know whether it was good or bad, but yes.
So
I was in JNU. So I joined JNU.
So you were the
after
JNU type.
Yeah. I don't know whether we can say JNU type or Stephen's type.
I'm joking. So you were, what did you study at JNU?
I was studying history and then I did some international relations.
Okay.
I joined SIS also for my MPhil.
Okay.
And before that I studied history at JNU.
Okay.
But I was also deeply involved in the Students' Union at JNU. So that took a lot of my time.
That warrants a separate show talking about
probably,
JNU.
yes. Probably, yes. JNU is very fascinating.
Yes.
And the transitions that JNU has seen.
And in fact, there are so many civil servants who come from JNU, which is the biggest irony of JNU being labelled an anti-national university.
It is not, because I think so many of our cabinet ministers, in fact, our finance minister and our foreign minister, they're both from JNU. And in fact, our finance minister and I were contemporaries in JNU. So it's...
Any memories you have?
Well, yes. I mean, she campaigned for me in my elections. Way back in the year 1982.
Oh, how lovely. So now tell me about the UPSC exam. Was it your first attempt after which you got into the IAS?
Yes, it was the first attempt, and I was very fortunate that I could. And I think the reason is that, when you work for a newspaper, your ability to express yourself becomes much better. Actually, the same information is available to everyone. So how is it that you crack the exam in the first attempt? That is because you are better at writing. You're better at expressing your thoughts. So I think that's what helped me clear the exam in the first attempt. The information is, after all, the same. I mean, everybody read the same books.
Yeah.
The syllabus is the same. I mean,
of course, we all broadly know what the UPSC exam tests you on. But in retrospect, what is that one thing that you think what people were actually looking for in candidates?
What happens is that as far as the candidates are concerned, a lot of my friends and those who were sitting with me, they spent a lot of their time reading. But I spent an equal amount of time in writing notes, in making my own notes. So when you make your own notes and when you do your own preparation, then you give your perspective into the answer script. Whereas if you have just cogged, then you're giving somebody else's viewpoint. So I think that may have made a difference. It's very difficult to recount what happened nearly 40 years ago now, more than 40 years ago.
What was the interview like? Do you have any memories?
Oh yes, I really enjoyed my interview because the first thing which when I entered the room and I said, "Good
was
morning."
it intimidating?
No, it's never intimidating. Even now that I'm on the other side, I sit on the UPSC. The purpose of the interview is not to intimidate. It's to see your response. It's to see how quick you are, how comfortable you are in different situations. I remember the first thing they asked me was, the headline today says RBI cuts interest rates by half. I said, sir, we forgot to add percentage to that. The printer's devil. See, we could have, destroyed this would have happened. They all had a hearty laugh. They said, do you know what the printer's devil can do? Because this is what had happened. I mean, somewhere along the line, they forgot to add percentage. So how can Reserve Bank cut interest rate by half? So it was 0.5%. So something of that sort. So then it started on. And then, of course, the typical question that, why do you already working? Where do you want? So I said, I'm competing because I had a challenge with my father that I can't clear this exam. So I decided to take it up as a challenge. So then somebody said, thank God for an honest answer. Everyone else has come to serve the country. So it was a very friendly interview. And at one point of time, they said that, you have this Assam problem, this Punjab issue, this GNA, how do you solve it? I said, so, well, all of you have not been able to solve it. How do you expect me to solve it? Very friendly interview. Very friendly interview, very relaxed, very nice. And I quite enjoyed it.
That's a good pro tip for people who are preparing.
I sit for UPSC, I sit for state public service interviews and also UPSC. So the purpose is to make the candidate feel comfortable.
I have to ask you this question, sir. But, this ability to banter with people who are sitting on the other side of the table also, I imagine, would come with a certain flourish in English or, having some kind of
I think that
cultural
credit I would give to JNU. You know, the ability to
But
to
what would you
engage
say
in.
to people who don't have that, who are a bit, who are not so comfortable speaking in English, or who do not have that kind of cultural pedigree? How do they establish this comfort level with people who are
See,
interviewing them?
it is for the interview board. It is precisely what the interview board should be doing. The interview board should be disarming the other person. It should be disarming the candidate.
The
So
onus is not on the
it's
candidate.
actually the responsibility of the interview board to make everyone feel comfortable. Because look, let's face it, the main competence has already been tested in the mains.
Ji.
What the interview does is that it'll ensure that your ranking in the overall list, right? If somebody is done brilliantly in the mains, he or she will still make it. What the interview would do is to change your relative position, because the interview, that time it was 250, now it's about 300. So I don't know the exact figure, but the bulk of the examination is the mains examination, right? So it's the mains examination which determines whether you are in or you're not in. So I think interview is very important, but the most important
It's not the
is
key.
the mains. The key mains is the key.
Tell us about your training in the mid 80s. What was because I believe that at in every decade there is a certain vision that the political leadership has of the country, and the bureaucrats are supposed to execute that. So in the 80s, what was this broad vision for India that you were being trained for?
You see, let's also understand that it's an all India service, right? So what happens is that while whatever is taught in the academy is based on the syllabus that has been prescribed, in which we study the constitution, we study the laws, the CRPC, the IPC, and the management, finances, district, and all these things. The actual way in which it pans out is very different from state to state. For example, the land reform legislation has been there in all the states. But in states like West Bengal, it was actually being implemented.
Yeah, correct.
In Kerala, it was actually being implemented. So you had, on paper, there was land legislation. In UP, there was land reforms in Punjab, but it was not working. But in West Bengal, when I went and saw, the communist government was serious about land redistribution. And therefore, Operation Barga was in full swing when I joined the state, when I joined Purulia district. And I've actually seen the transformation of Purulia from being a very, very, one would say, a state which was in dire poverty, to a state, to a district which is now doing fairly well.
But I before we come to your time in Bengal, I want to ask you a little bit about the training. Is it just legalistic norms that are taught during the training?
No, it's not.
Ki
You see, it is
CRPC padha diya constitution.
No. Basically, the whole aspect in the academy, there's a lot of emphasis on guest lectures. There's a lot of emphasis on interacting with practitioners. And as far as
it was true that time as well.
That time also. And a lot of interaction with the young officers. So whether it's the SDO seminar, whether it is the interaction with the DMs, whether it's interaction with those who have done exceptionally well in the way you look at things, because in those days, before the IT and before all these things happened, there was something called Lakina model, by which you had made separate sections in offices, restructuring offices. So a lot of things were happening. You see, every 5 years, every few years, not 5 years, but every few years, there's always something new that is happening. And the academy does try to capture what are the best practices throughout the country and discuss with. So there's a lot of focus on case studies, interaction, group tours. So that's how.
And how long was your training at the Missouri Academy?
That has not changed much, because after our foundation course, then we went on our village study tour, the army attachment, the PSU attachment. And in fact, I just wanted to share, in fact, a few days ago, I was discussing the change. We went for our attachment to HMT. And now these batches are going for attachment to the Bangalore International Airport. Now, when you look at the difference between the HMT, a staid old unit, which is making everything from tractors to watches.
Yeah.
You're not of the generation which
I know the HMT watches.
You know the HMT watch. But in fact, there's a very interesting book, The History of India in 100 Objects, by Devyani Karyappa. So she's mentioned the HMT watch as one of those history moments, you know, because India didn't even have watches. Can you imagine that? So from that to now we are sending officers to the Bangalore International Airport Limited, which is a state-of-art airport.
But what
that
is,
state
to do
of-
what?
Just to understand, when we are in the HMT, we're trying to understand what is the purpose with which HMT has been built. How is HMT built? And HMT's campus at that time was one of the most modern campuses of Bengaluru, right? BIAL is a consortium of the private sector, Government of India, Government of Karnataka, and a host of investors. So this itself shows you how much India has changed. Of course, there are attachments with tribal attachment with civil society organizations, with state government. So all this is there. So a lot of it keeps changing. A lot of it, the core remains the same. Whereas the purpose, as I have always said, is that, you know, in the IAS, unlike any other service, you have to be comfortable everywhere. You have to be comfortable with the farmer, with the SHG women, with the ICDS worker, as also with an investor. Because you know, you are rural development secretary. I mean, in my own case, I was rural development secretary till 1st August 2003. And on 2nd September, I was secretary industries. So there is a, I mean, obviously my stakeholders are very different.
Correct.
In the rural development department. I'm talking to SHGs, I'm talking to women, I'm talking to BPL, I'm talking about, you know, those days it was not MG and Narega, but it was JRY and IRDP. And suddenly you move into a world where you're talking about investments in you know, hundreds of crores. I mean, thousands of crores has become current now. But way back in 2003, I mean, 100 crores was a lot of money, you see.
Yeah, but you know, that's also the biggest criticism that's leveled against IAS officers, the whole generalist ki ye na idhar ke hai na udhar ke. So is that a strength, or
it is the strength? It is the strength. In fact, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, about what is it. See, the job of the IAS, we're not the opening batsman of a team. We're not even the knight. We are the umpires. We set the ground. We set the ground that everything is okay. So once you know that you have to set the ground, so whether you're playing a 5-day match or you're playing a 20-over match or you're playing a 1-day, what is the job? The IAS is not the batsman. We're not Sunil Gavaskars. We are the quiet, silent people without whom the match cannot be played. And that's a very important point to understand. We're not meant to do what a lot of people, you know, some of these new podcasts and things.
The Singham type imagery.
That's not our job. I mean, recently there was a podcast in which they said, show me one IAS officer who's done. That's not my job. My job is to prepare the field so that you do well.
But that's also, again, a criticism that's leveled against IAS officers of being extremely status quoist.
Not really. I think amongst various services, amongst various professions, I think, in fact, that would be true for all. Everybody thinks that they are bringing about change. I think the IAS has changed a lot, you know, because let's look at India, say 1947. So the first transition which the IAS saw was when we moved from a purely law and order and a revenue administration to a development administration, right? We didn't have CD blocks, we didn't have BDOs. I mean, agricultural development, you know, Green Revolution. The Green Revolution, with all respects to MS Swaminathan, but the Green Revolution was C. Subramanian, the very intelligent agriculture minister who gave all the functional freedom to Swaminathan, and agriculture secretary by the name of B. Sivaram, whom we often tend to forget.
Yes.
It is this combination of a bureaucrat, a technocrat, a political leader under Lal Bahadur Shastri, which led to this. You see, I've often said that in order to do good governance, you need Prabhu Shakti, which is the power of the sovereign, which is the power of the elected sovereign in a democracy. You need Mantrana Shakti, which is the advisory, the technical and the financial and the policy advice, which is given by senior bureaucrats, senior people who are joint secretaries and above. And then there is Utsaha Shakti, which is provided by the DMs and the ADMs and the SDMs and the young field officers. So it's only when all these three work together that you bring about great transformation. I mean, having Prabhu Shakti by itself, without mantrana and utsah, will not lead anything. Utsah without the right, direction, again would be meaningless.
अगर मैं इसको if I translate it into simpler vocabulary, people often say, and this quote is so widely used, but one doesn't know who to attribute it to, that in India there are three positions that are most powerful: PM, CM, and DM. The only difference being, and I ask this to my guests very often, that the DM is the only non-elected, unelected position out of all these three. Do you think there is some scope to have a democratically elected leader at the district level as well?
I think we are. There is a fair amount of confusion about the roles and about what is expected
Of a DM.
Of a DM, and even of, you see, the role of the DM is to maintain the norms, the laws, the rules as have been enacted by the legislature and by the parliament, right? So you cannot have a, if it comes to, that's why we don't have the jury system. I mean, certain things have to be done as per the law. So the DM is there to uphold the law. We have the Zilla Panchayat, which is there to do development works. Now, you will need a lot of consensus when it comes to development work, but you can't have consensus when somebody has broken the law. I mean, if somebody has broken the law and 100 people say, leave him, you break it. I mean, you can't do it. And great changes in law are sometimes met with a great degree of opposition. Take the entire legislation which is pro-women. Take the entire legislation which rejects dowry. Take the entire legislation. Today we are so proud of saying that we have these posh guidelines and we have this Vishaka guideline. This is not the result of a consensus at the ground level. Certain things are done because they need to be done, and certain things have to be enforced. You need popular mandate for certain types of things, and you need to have strict adherence to rules
But do
and
you
norms.
not think that the DM has a lot of discretionary power as well for a person who's unelected?
Why do you say he's unelected? And he's been selected through a proper channel. The DM is not holding an arbitrary position. I mean, you're not a DM because somebody has decided that you become a DM. A DM has been selected by the UPSC. He has been trained by the LBS National Academy of Education. He's been trained in the state ATI. He's been under the tutelage of his seniors, and he knows that these are the norms to be followed. Take land acquisition. Anything that we talk about, census ho gaya, land acquisition ho gaya, gender sensitization ho gaya, working in a movement for. And I'll give you one example. You see, today, fortunately, leprosy is out of the country. There's hardly any cases of leprosy. I mean, it's gone. But Purulia was, for example, a district
where you got posted
first. Now, whatever you might say, ki leprosy is curable, it is not communicable, this and that, but such was the social
stigma.
What should one say, stigma attached to it, that nothing seemed to be working. So even as a probationer, what I thought was, let me go and have tea with them. Right, so just go and have tea with them. So that sends a message. So a lot of things, you cannot go by consensus everywhere. Certain rules have to be followed. I mean, if a helmet has to be worn, a helmet has to be worn. If a seatbelt has to be worn, a seatbelt has to be worn. Where is the consensus involved in that? So let's not have a role confusion about what a DM does. And as far as as the India is urbanizing, the role of the DM is getting shifted, because today the police commissioner and the municipal commissioner are equally important, and sometimes even more important than a district magistrate in a large metropolitan city. A district magistrate or a deputy commissioner was the ideal sort of a setup when we had largely agrarian economies. As economies evolve, so will things evolve, so will things change. So today a police commissioner and a municipal commissioner and the district magistrate, they're all co-equivalent, I would say, because all of them have their own areas of responsibility. What a municipal commissioner can do, a police commissioner cannot do. What a police commissioner can do, a municipal commissioner cannot do, right? So all of them are required. When there is a crisis or when something is happening, then everybody has to come together and work. So as we will evolve, roles will become more specialist, roles will become clearer, and there'll be a lot of IT use. And the point is that as a service or as services, are the IAS and the IPS and the IRS and the customs and the foreign service, are we able to use AI? Are we being able to incorporate IT in our work? If the answer is yes, then we are doing well. If the answer is, are we resistant to change there? The answer is no. Do you find the IAS or the DCs or the DCPs here resistant to bring in more IT?
No, in fact, I think one criticism again that is often made is that now we have too many engineers in the IAS. The number of people getting into
That's fine.
I mean,
Actually,
it's
I
just
think the reason is very simple. That in my father's generation, for example, how many people went to engineering colleges? In my generation also, most people were doing liberal arts and some were going to engineering. And how many engineering colleges and medical colleges were there? There were only 3 medical colleges in Punjab. So this means that the annual intake in Punjab medical college would have been 300, another 300 into the engineering colleges. So where would the rest of the people? So most people were studying liberal arts. Now with the number of engineering colleges, with the number of medical colleges, they have grown much more in proportion to liberal arts colleges. Therefore, it's quite normal that that the number
Civil
of people
services.
we get from the engineering backgrounds, from a whole range. I mean,
But
architects.
has that shift from the bureaucracy being dominated by people from the liberal arts to a bureaucracy that's dominated by engineers and doctors, has that changed the character of the civil services in any way over the decades?
It's difficult to give a yes and no answer to this. It's a transition is there because you see, those who studied liberal arts would be very liberal in quoting, texts from, from all the philosophers. I mean, for us, Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, Marx, Lenin, Engels, Shakespeare, and all these things. This is a very common currency. That sort of language is obviously going to be different because they've not been formally trained in this. So it's okay, but they talk in terms of equations, they talk in different terms. But in general, I think the job profile that is more dominant, and that defines the way we think. That defines the way we look at reality. Because the problems that you will face as a district magistrate will be the same whether you studied literature or history or philosophy.
But your perspective
or
can
quantum.
differ on the
Well,
basis
there
of
would
what
be a
you've
different.
studied.
There would be some differences. I'm sure there would be some differences, but I don't think these are differences which will affect the way you look at things. Of course, some people. In fact, to my mind, what has made a lot of difference is the fact that now we're not handling a lot of judicial work. But when you're handling judicial work, then the powers of writing long reasoned reports, based on hearing two sides of an argument. That has, to my mind, that has affected us. That has affected our
How?
thing. Because now, for the first 8 or 9 years, the officers are expected to perform. Whereas earlier, even in the first 9 years, you were dealing with a lot of judicial cases. I mean, especially in Bengal, you're dealing with a lot of land revenue cases. Now, those cases are becoming less and less, and those cases are moving to the judicial side.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, there are pros and there are cons. So.
To just elaborate a little bit. So what is that one loss that has happened because of?
I won't use the word loss, but I would say, that when you are dealing with judicial cases, so since there's the 3 of us now here, and Sajid makes a point, and you make a point, and then I have to sit and look very closely at what he said and what you said, and then I have to give a reasoned judgment. So that makes it much clearer, and I think that helps us in the long run to be able to understand both sides of the argument. This is a trait which perhaps has become less when you are only expected to do. And it's not a service of ours is to do and die, ours is not to reason why, but this is a service in which you also have to reason.
Yeah.
So I think that aspect, the fact that you expect very quick delivery of results. So that maybe it is new for me, because we were used to, and remember this 80s was the time when even you did not even have STDs. You didn't have the STD phone, so everything was more laid back.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think perhaps it's part of the transition, so it's okay.
Now, tell us a little bit about. You were obviously born and raised in Punjab, and then you go to West Bengal as get the West Bengal cadre. How for a Punjabi to be in West Bengal?
But it was via JNU. So I think, if it not been via JNU,
It would have been tough.
It would have been much tougher. But one thing was
But did you learn Bangla?
Yeah, of course. One has to learn Bangla. Bangla na bole to increment hoy na. In order to get your increment, you have to learn Bangla. But it was a bit difficult for me because I was posted in Darjeeling most of the time. But before that, many advantages, of having been in JNU. So one understood all the Marxist jargon which the CPM leaders would employ. So one did not really have a problem,
Yeah.
And in fact, in many student agitations, tell them that, look, this is not an antagonistic contradiction. This is one of those non-antagonistic contradictions. We can settle it up. So I think that was there. But you see, West Bengal had three kinds of districts. There were districts where the CPM was in complete control. Districts like Howrah, Hooghly, Midnapur,
Okay.
These were districts in which CPM had complete control. And here the Zilla Panchayat would actually dominate in a very big way. Then there were districts like Malda and Murshidabad, which remained Congress strongholds. Ghani Khan Chaudhary was a very powerful leader. So here, CPM did not have that sort of a control because the Congress was equally powerful. And because the Congress was equally powerful, the DMs had much greater leeway in these two or three districts. And then there was North Bengal, district like Darjeeling, where neither the CPM counted nor the Congress counted. It was a complete JNLF agitation. So
And you were posted there.
I was posted. So I've never been posted to a core CPM district as such. So when a lot of people, say that in Bengal cadre, the IAS had nothing much to do, the DM had nothing much to do, it was all dictated by the party. It could have been true, but at least for the districts where I worked, fortunately or unfortunately. Purulia is also a fringe district because it's never really core. It was earlier part of, Bihar, Mallabhum district. And I must tell you the story of, Mallabhum, Singhbhum and Birbhum, these three districts. These were areas which were captured by Bir Man Singh.
Okay.
And by that time, Bir Man Singh had reached the highest rank that could have been given to a non-royal in the Mughal court. So, ab kya kare? He's already the cabinet secretary. He can't be made minister of state. So they decided to name this entire area after him. So Bir Man Singh. So that is how it was. Birbhum, Manbhum, Singhbhum. So that area was named after him because, you see, they could not have increased his rank. They could not have increased his pay. So they decided to name the area after him. So that's how this area was. But anyway, these are all interesting stories about. If you keep your eyes and ears open about history.
Yeah. But your initial days in Bengal, you said that...
Initially, I was posted to Purulia district, where three of us were from JNU, myself and the two ADMs, and the DM used to feel out of place. Because, we got along so well. I mean, the two ADMs and myself, we got along so well, and it was nice. It was, the era. There was hardly a TV show at that time. So evenings were all spent in each other's homes. We go to the Sainik school or to the railway colony in Adra. So there's a lot of bonding.
But what was the work?
Work was.
And what was this? You were a probationer at this time.
I was an assistant magistrate and assistant collector. So again, there also you spend 2 weeks with the SP, 2 weeks with the district judge, 2 weeks in the agriculture office.
And how long is this?
This 1 year training.
Okay.
But and then the rest of the time we were in the collectorate. So the municipal elections were going on. So I was attached to the election office. So the first understanding of how electoral rolls are made, how deletion of names takes place, how AROs are appointed, how sector magistrates are appointed, which are the vulnerable points, a lot of meetings with the local SP on, how to maintain the law and order. The agriculture office, the forest office, judiciary. So I was finishing these trainings and then I'd gone for a land settlement training to Alipurdwar in up north in North Bengal. Where the then district magistrate of Darjeeling had come for a lecture, Mr. D.P. Patro. So he was looking for young officers to come to Darjeeling because a lot of officers with Bengali surnames were forced to leave Darjeeling.
This was the time of the Gorkha
Gorkha
agitation.
agitation peak, So there was the BDOs were leaving, deputy magistrates were leaving. So we just picked up, and he says, all those who want to come, and said, of course, why not? So I was the first to volunteer to go to Darjeeling, and three of us, myself, Pawan Agarwal, and Bhaviskar, three of us, we decided to join Darjeeling district. And
How old were you at the time?
25.
It would have been an unnerving.
Not really. I mean, you actually, my fiancée, she asked me, that after one of these attacks, how do you feel? I said, I feel like James Bond. Because, you at the age of 25, you have a CRPF escort, you are into territories which are, and it's tough. It's actually tough. But again, the one thing which I learnt in Darjeeling was that if in a crisis situation, the leadership team of the DM, and at that time the SP had become DIG, if that team is good, and if the DM can take his SDMs and his police officers and everybody along, then we can deliver results. Problems happen when the unity of command and purpose that breaks. When there is clarity of role, when there is role clarity that this has to be done and therefore it has to be done, then it can be done. But the problem is when there is an infighting, and in fact there is a larger issue about the government of West Bengal and the government of India having a disagreement on the modalities of the GNLF Accord. So that was a problem, but that was a problem which we did not face because we were functionaries at that time. We were very clear that, look, the rule of law has to be followed.
But I think this would be very interesting to our viewers. What would the role of an IAS officer, either an ADM or a DM, be in a conflict situation like this?
In a conflict situation like this, our job is to ensure that everything else runs. That for example, I remember having to send all the ICSE boys and girls from Kalimpong all the way to places in Siliguri and beyond for their exams. Because exams, while the state government agreed to postpone the exams in Darjeeling, the ICSE would refuse to do it, right? So we had to shift all these kids. So that required coordination of the army, it required coordination of the ICSE with changing their roll numbers and doing these things. And when a crisis happens, everything tends to break down. And it's not just and that's actually your role is a 24/7 role, because the hospital supplies have to run.
Yeah.
The nurses have to be motivated, doctors have to be motivated. The normal trade channels break, right? So the normal flow of goods into the subdivision breaks. So whether it is soaps or whether it is cigarettes or whether it is sanitary pads, so everything has to be organized through trucks, through sometimes you have to requisition trucks, sometimes you have to ensure, so you have to build confidence because you are, and actually the civilians are caught in the crossfire between the militant or the terrorist who is very, tunnel vision, and the police or the CRPF and the BSF who are losing people on a day-to-day basis. You see, it's all very easy and very nice to talk about this, here, but I have seen situations where my own escort has been killed. When your escort is killed, at that point of time, tempers are running very high.
Correct.
So you have to sort of balance it out. You have to ensure that things don't go out of hand. You have to ensure your presence. You have to.
As someone who's in their 20s, that's.
But I think everything was done when people were in their 20s and their early 30s. So I think, in fact, one of the things that happens is that when you are very young, you are willing to go out at any time to handle a situation. Now imagine. I know. You see, imagine when you are a DM in your late 20s, you are willing to go anywhere, anytime. But when you are slightly older, then you hesitate. There is a sort of thing. So I think that is what. So I think that's important. To have younger district magistrates who are willing to go to the spot.
Yeah. Sorry.
And going to the spot, gives a lot of confidence. I mean, like sometimes in a situation where rumors are rife, anything and everything is attributed to either the security forces or to the terrorist stroke militant. So there was a big fire in Algara in my subdivision. That was a genuine fire caused by a gas explosion, right? But rumors were rife, and this and that and that. So one had to go and not only douse the fire, but more than that, douse the suspicions. And that communication, that's very important.
But that's what I was going to ask. Do you face some resistance because you're not a Bengali? So,
In fact, that was an advantage.
Sorry, you're not
that
even
was an advantage because their
But,
animosity was to any
towards the
Bengali
Bengalis.
surname. So in fact, all of us who were there at that time were not Bengalis. I mean, working for the government of West Bengal, but not Bengalis, because they were, at that point of time, they could not, so there was Patra, there was Handa, there was me, there was Baviskar, there was Pachnanda, Pachi. So, except one, there was Basudev Banerjee who continued to be there, but mostly the non-Bengali officers had been sent there. So that was it.
But what I meant to ask...
In fact, after the... one of the things which Mr. Gishing said that the court was being sent was send these officers out. So we were thrown out. And then within 1 year, he realized that, we were the only ones who knew how to speak Nepali and Gurkhali, so you can get them back. So you've seen all these changes happening, You've seen the strength of these people. You've seen the vulnerability of these people. You've seen Gishing at the height of his glory. You've seen Gishing when he was a non-entity. Again became a non-entity, because one thing about political power and that they can rise very high. And then when the decline happens, the decline happens.
One thing I've now, covered bureaucracy for many years. Something that really makes me curious is the disdain also that people have towards, that general people have towards IAS officers. Because there are so many times I read either comments on YouTube or people writing to us otherwise, where there is, I don't know how better to explain it. There's just disdain for the DM, disdain for IAS officers. Inhone desh ko piche kiya. Just that kind of. Why do you think that kind of emotion exists in society?
India actually piche gaya. If India is the 4th largest economy in the world, if India stands integrated.
But I want to psychologically understand this. Why do you think that DM is such a hated figure?
Not hated. I think people are just plain jealous. Because everybody a lot of people in the media, a lot of people in academia, they all tried for this service. I'm sorry, I'll be offending a lot of people, but इतने लोग बैठते हैं हर साल, 13 लोग बैठते हैं, select तो कभी होते हैं, so naturally maybe I don't know, but maybe that is one factor, but. There's disdain, but there's a lot of affection also for IAS. There's a lot of respect also. And I think, IAS officers are also of all types. There are IAS officers who are friendly. There are IAS officers who are not friendly. But that, I would say, for all professions. There are doctors who are very forthright. There are doctors who are very conservative. Same with journalists. There are very friendly journalists, and there are taciturn journalists. So all types of people are there. There are black sheep everywhere.
Yeah. So now tell us that you served in Murshidabad as the DM.
Murshidabad. So if you were to count the trajectory, so what happened was that I was in Purulia, then I went to Darjeeling, then I became BDO Kalimpong, then I became SDO Kalimpong, and I was having a great time in Kalimpong.
What a
we
wonderful,
got married in Kalimpong, and we had a great time. And then when this accord was happening, then some of us had to be moved out. And
but tell us about that. Why did they want you to be out?
No, that they didn't want just me particularly.
Because officers in general.
I think because what Mr. Gishing and what others would have felt is that these were in the forefront. Because we were in the forefront of resistance, right? So there is the agitation that is happening, and there's somebody who's trying to douse that agitation. There's somebody who's making arrests, and we were involved in arresting people. We were involved in starting criminal cases against them. So naturally, there's a little bit of a resistance also, which is fine, which is perfectly understandable. So I was posted to first to Haldia, but then there was a court case. Bengal, as you know, is a very litigant place. So somebody filed a case against why Haldia should be made a subdivision. So I got posted to a place called Ghatal, which I'd never heard of before. Now the interesting thing is that before joining the IAS, I had not heard of Purulia, I had not heard of Kalimpong. and not heard of Khatal. So, the beauty of this service is that you end up in places that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up in a state called Uttarakhand, which was not there when I joined the service. Right? So
Yeah.
then I joined Kuch Bihar as an ADM. And that was the time when the Teen Bigha agitation was at its peak. And that's the time when we were asked to do a white paper on, the DM was asked to do the white paper, but obviously the DM was also from JNU, so he said, you do all the background work because you enjoy this. So, but looking back, Teen Bigha today is a forgotten event of our history, but that was the first step towards settling our borders. And again, it's an anomaly of history. What had actually transpired was that it was only the revenue of these villages which was being exchanged. But somewhere along the line, the physical village also got exchanged. And so you had enclaves of Bangladesh in India, and you had enclaves of India in Bangladesh. There's a tragedy for those people. That's where you come to the much larger question, how do you identify yourself? So are you an Indian or a Bangladeshi because you're in an enclave? But it should have been resolved because, see, let me take a little credit. Mr. Nehru and Mr. Noon tried to resolve it in 1969. They failed. Indira Gandhi and Mujib tried to solve it in 1974. They failed. Finally, Mr. Modi resolved it officially through the land border agreement. But the groundwork, and that is what becomes very important, the groundwork for all these has to be done by people on the ground, working in collaboration with the MEA, working in collaboration with the MHA, working in collaboration with the district administration.
So what was your role like?
No, my role was basically to prepare the white paper, to get the maps and to explain that, it's actually, you see, because whenever these things have to happen, the first is the district administration must say that it's a good thing to do. Because after all, it is this district's land which is being leased. So the owner, custodian of land is the district magistrate, right? So notionally, there must be consensus. And in the district level, there was a lot of opposition from the forward bloc, which was an alliance partner with the CPM. Again, maybe for personal reasons, or sometimes you have to create reasons. In politics, sometimes, you create reasons. So Mr. Kamal Guha was not very happy with Mr. Jyoti Boshu at that time. Whatever might have been the thing, but there was a big agitation in Kuch Bihar that you will not hand over Teen Bigha. Now, it's a decision which has been taken at the highest level in the country. It's a decision which has even been endorsed by the state chief minister. But one alliance partner says, no, I will not do it. So you have to sort of, not that we can actually go and doubt, but, that's where the informal role of the bureaucracy, the informal role of the district magistrate.
If you can shed some light on this informal role of the bureaucracy. How do these informal
in a town like Kuch Bihar, to be able to communicate to, who are the opinion leaders in that place. There are obviously opinion leaders who are totally aligned with a political party. So they are not going to change. But then there are teachers, there are civil society people, there are older civil servants, there are the retired army people, there's the royal family of Kuch Bihar, there are the descendants of the royal family. So you are talking to many people, whether it's the film club or whether it's the theatre group. So you sort of, talk and get opinions, and in the course of those opinions, you also give your opinion. And that's how it works. There's no very rigid, because public opinion cannot be made in the sense that you line up 600 people. It's not like giving a COVID injection. It's not like, saying line up and we'll give you an injection. No, creating public opinion is a more, what should we say, more nuanced thing. So that's what, so it's an informal role. I won't be able to qualify it or quantify it, but that's what happens.
So then you come to Murshidabad.
No, then I went back to Darjeeling district again as the CEO of Himalayan Milk Union Limited, which was all in the Gorkha territory. And I was so I worked 3 years there. We're trying to revive the milk union over there. Himul was designed on the lines of Amul and like all these things. But what had happened was that the infrastructure that had been built in the late 70s, early 80s, never anticipated that there'll be an agitation. So what happened was that all our milk production centers, which were up in the hills, and the processing was down in Siliguri, because the milk market was in Siliguri. So that broke down. I mean, that system broke down. So we did a lot of very interesting things like, buying milk from Nepal and Sikkim,
Acha.
buying white butter from Bhutan, extending our cattle feed and our AI equipment to Bangladesh.
This is very interesting, and I want to know how much of these decisions are made by the political leadership, and how many of these are the initiatives of the bureaucracy, or do they work in
point
tandem?
is they work. Unless you're doing something which the politician is opposed to, you have all the freedom.
And they don't bother with this kind of.
In fact, sometimes they're very happy about it. Sometimes, for instance, when you start buying milk from Nepal, it's an opportunity to cut a ribbon. It's an opportunity to sort of make a foreign tour. So, I mean, people are happy. When we went to Bhutan, I mean, our minister was very happy. Cholo, Bhutan bhi chalte hain. She was very happy to go to Bhutan.
I had Mr. Subhash Garg on this show, and he said one thing politicians always want is credit. So जब तक आप वो दे रहे हैं, they don't.
Credit दे दो, foreign tour साथ में लगा दो. And you see, the advantage was that such picturesque locations. So you go to Bhutan में आधे घंटे का काम है, but you spend 3-4 days there. You're happy. So it was a good experience being in Himalaya. But fortunately, the next vacancy was in Murshidabad, and Murshidabad was grand. And Murshidabad is actually one of India's first districts. That's the border of Plassey. Murshid was India's most prosperous district. It was the capital of India for about 40 years, before Hastings took the capital to Calcutta. So it was the center, the most important city of the country, the hub. And Murshidabad itself, the capital of Bengal used to be Dhaka. But Murshid Quli Khan was the revenue governor of Aurangzeb. And there was a little tussle between him and the Nawab of Dhaka, who was the grandson of Aurangzeb. So he realized that usse panga nahi lene ka. So he shifted the revenue capital from Dhaka to Murshidabad and made Murshidabad more prosperous. Then Murshidabad had the Portuguese mission, all these mission in the sense of trade mission. So Portuguese, Spanish, not Spanish, Portuguese, English, Dutch. So all of them had set up their factories. Jagat Seth, the biggest financier of India, was from there. Then, of course, later on, as you're aware, that, Mir Jafars and Sirajudaulas and, the East India Company. So, but Murshidabad continues to be a fascination for me. In fact, my tagline in the academy was, when I was DM Murshidabad. So
for how many years were you there?
2 years.
2 years.
And I had a fight with the minister, so then I had to leave.
Tell us about that, but also tell us how many people were there, because I think what I find particularly fascinating is how many people are you kind of responsible for as the DM. So Murshidabad mein kitne log the?
Murshidabad at that point of time was 65 lakh people.
Oh wow.
Today the population should be touching 1 crore. In fact, the governor of Tripura was holding additional charge of Bengal, and he came to inaugurate a college in Nurul Hasan College Nurul Hasan had been our governor earlier. So that was the name of the college in one of my blogs. So he looked at our district plan and he says, wow, he says, Mr. DM, this is 3 times the size of Tripura. I said, yes, sir. But it was a great district to be in, and
what was this fight with which minister?
I still think that it's too large a district. I have held in my columns in the print only that districts should not have more than 25 to 30 lakh people, should not have more than 2 or 3 subdivisions, and at best about 8 or 10 blocks. If we want to deliver development administration, because it's not just law and order is episodic, and revenue collection or revenue management is a set stream. But development requires day-to-day interaction, requires a lot more of your personal involvement. So I think district sizes should be a bit smaller. Now Mamata Banerjee did announce the trifurcation of this district, but it had not happened till very recently. It will happen. It will happen.
So what was this fight with a minister? Who was this minister? What happened?
Well, let's not name the minister concerned, except that, because I had been in Times of India, and Sudhir Tailang, my friend, was the cartoonist with the Times of India. So he brought out a very nice cartoon in the Times of India in which the minister is trying to cut trees, and there is the DM holding his hand and saying, "Thou shalt not cut trees." So which became the Times of India. So it was nice to see that. It was a very simple issue. What happens is that there was a forest, forest of sal trees. And the minister was keen to auction those trees. And I was very clear that these should not be cut because these are more than 40 years old, which is the law of the land, which was the law of the land. So little, hota rehta hai. It's okay. I mean, there is no major issue. So it was good for me because I was immediately picked up when I joined the National Academy as the deputy director. So no major
But
problem.
this threat of the transfer,
It should not affect us.
but it does.
Well, it does when I think when it makes a major difference when the kids are in 10th, 11th, 12th, at that point of time. But when you're a DM, the kids are, I mean, my son was in nursery, so it didn't really affect us that much. But I think, the transfers become more of a challenge when the kids are in 9th, 10th or, 11th, 12th. That's where, and again, once the kids are in...
but जो plum posting का
What is the meaning
carrot
of a
है,
plum posting?
that
Come on,
carrot
man.
is always there
I
for
think,
IAS officers or
I
IPS
think
officers.
this is where we feed into the stereotype of a plum posting. There is no such thing. I mean, I know that there are plum postings. There are preferred postings and there are not so preferred postings. But look, all of us make a choice. I have enjoyed being in training. I have spent 10 years of my life in training, which may not be considered to be a plum posting, but that's something which I've always enjoyed. I've enjoyed being in horticulture, RD, agriculture. I've spent another...
But that's not how most people think.
No, that is what we have, what the general perception that all of us, including you, have created, that every IAS officer wants to be in the PM or every IAS officer wants to be in the CMO. No, it may not be true. I mean, for one, not that I had a direct chance, but I've worked very closely with Mr. Tiwari. I could have, but that you lose
Mr.
out you lose out on all your. I mean, how can you watch all the plays? They're all at 6:30. And I mean, my time in Krishi Bhavan. I watched a lot of plays. We, a lot of things which is not possible if you are attached to. So everybody has to make a choice.
Sir, serving in a communist government, how is it different, and how, because Bengal is famously by academics called a party state, jahan pe the line between the party and the state is
I think I responded to you by saying that there were three kinds of districts. Districts where the CPM was very powerful, districts where the CPM was not so powerful,
where the
and
Congress
districts where the CPM or the Congress did not matter at all. So in all situations, it depends on what is the ground level support which the Communist Party
when you
had.
go to the secretariat?
By the time I went to the secretariat, it was the Buddhadev Bhattacharya was in thing. But secretariat is much easier because, see, government policies, when it comes to the federal, when it comes to the, at the secretariat level, in almost all states today, the center is overwhelmingly powerful. Because whether it is the industries department or the education department or the rural development department or the agriculture, you're basically implementing the policies of the government of India because the funding is coming from there. Right, as Secretary Agriculture, we are implementing the RKVY, the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, we are implementing the fertilizer. So everything, although many subjects are state subjects, but the fact is that over a period of time, because of the tremendous power, financial power and the policy power which the government of India has, the states have willy-nilly got to implement whatever the... So, if you have to implement RKVY or say the Krishi Fasal Bima Yojana, or you have to get supplies of fertilizers, or you have to sit in the meeting of procurement, whether you are a communist state or a non-communist state, what difference does it make? All my arguments, for instance, in 3 states, Bengal, Bihar and Assam, these are the only 3 jute producing states. When it comes to policy and jute production, it doesn't matter whether one state is communist, one state is with Congress, one state is with Lalu's party. All 3 will have to come together because it's a matter of jute. It's a matter of jute farmers. There are no other states in the country which produce jute. So let's understand that, while there's a lot of bluster about being communist, about being Congress. When it comes to core interests, those interests remain the same. If it comes to potato producers, if it comes to jute, I gave you an example because jute is produced only in these 3 states, right? So there's always that conflict in the government of India on how much jute should be used for packing, right? Because that's very interesting, because in the government of India itself, the crops division may not want jute because jute is more expensive. FCI would not prefer jute because FCI would prefer, other packaging material. But from the point of view of the state governments, the three states which produce jute, we are together.
Yeah.
So everything is driven by interests, right? And everything is also driven by how much more money you can get from the government of India to do your thing. So I did not find a major change there. But yes, certain things would be better implemented in certain states. For example, the Agricultural Workers' Compensation Act, when it came to farm machinery damages, the communist governments would perhaps take more interest.
Correct.
But the law is the same, right? So it's a question of how much interest is taken where. So,
any high points of your time working with Buddhadev Bhattacharya? Anything you remember offhand?
Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya was very keen that we make a very modern food processing industry in Bengal.
And what were you handling at the time?
I was handling both agriculture and horticulture in Bengal. So he was very, very forward-looking. But the high point there, or the low point rather, was that his own agriculture minister and the agriculture marketing minister, who were from the Forward Bloc, which was an alliance partner, they were the biggest saboteurs. They were the ones who blocked his reform. In fact, his own finance minister was blocking his reform. So that was the. I found him to be a very positive person. I mean, in personal conversation, he would express his anguish also about how difficult it is for him to manage such a large. I was the secretary of the West Bengal IAS Association officers. So we went and met him. So we told him these are the. So he laughed. He says, "Do you realize my problems? You have come with your problems. Do you realize my problems?" I said, "We do realize your problems." But a very nice gentleman. And I think contemporary history was not kind to him. But maybe, because he was definitely more forward-looking than Mr. Jyoti Basu. But he didn't have some of those skills which Mr. Jyoti Basu had. But I haven't worked closely with Mr. Basu, so I can't. In terms of building consensus, I find nobody better than N.D. Tiwari.
And
N.D. Tiwari was the person who could build a lot of consensus. I mean, I've seen him on the same day. He would be having a meeting with Brinda Karat, listening to her against Baba Ramdev, against Patanjali. And next day having tea again with Baba Ramdev. And,
you were with Mr. N.D. Tiwari from 2002 to 2007 in Uttarakhand.
Yeah.
As his?
No, not as his.
Not as his private secretary. But
as the Secretary Industries and Secretary Information Technology. So, as I was telling you, Uttarakhand was not there when we had joined the service. So, I was working I was a deputy director at the academy when Uttarakhand was made. And at that point of time, the government gave an offer to all those within 6 to 16 years of service to join Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand or Uttarakhand on deputation.
Achha.
So that's when I took this offer and joined the government of Uttarakhand initially for 3 years and then for another 2 years, so 5 years. So that's why one of the few officers who's had the opportunity of serving in 2 state governments.
So tell us a little bit about Mr. N.D. Tiwari. I was watching an interview of yours before coming here. So उसमें मैं सुन रही थी that you used to write his speeches or
Yes, I mean, he did not, he acknowledged the fact that I wrote his speeches. A lot of ministers have not acknowledged the fact that their speeches are written by the joint secretaries, but he would openly say, and he gave me a very nice letter also. And I never knew that English is called Angul Bhasha. उसका नाम आंगुल भाषा है. He says कि इनकी आंगुल भाषा पे गहन अध्ययन और ये वो. This is very nice. So he would actually, he was very fond of, at least, he would get a lot of books. And I think partly because of him also I had to read a lot. So he would give me books and say, इसको पढ़ो अब बताओ क्या लिखा है इसमें. Then he would get the gist and then he would say ये, but very nice, friendly. I found him to be a very grandfatherly figure, So very affectionate, very warm, and gave a lot of freedom to me when I was Secretary Industries and Secretary IT. So in fact, the transformation of the industrial landscape in Uttarakhand, I give a credit to him and to the then Chief Secretary Dr. R.S. Tolias. They gave me a lot of freedom to do what I wanted to.
But I think very quickly, I do want to talk about being an officer and at such a key position in a new state. What are the challenges like?
In fact, it's a great advantage to be in a new state because you don't have the baggage of the secretariat. You don't have the baggage. You see, point is, and that's what the Mission Karma Yogi is now coming about. When you say that, look at your role and then define your rule. So the role is more important than the rule. What happens is that when you have a very large secretariat, then everybody is trying to find ways on how to stop it because that's what the secretariat has been trained to do.
Correct.
The secretariat has been trained in a manner because secretariat manuals and all things were meant for a regulatory regime. And they felt that the field officers are going berserk, so they have to be controlled. So it's a very patriarchal mindset, control. So I would say that, the secretariat functioning is like a patriarchy. So you control, you hold, you give this, you give this. So everything is a matter of control. But we did not have too many officers. We did not have the secretariat at that time. So we were able to, drop a lot of things and quick decision making. And a lot of transparency because the fewer people who are involved in decision making, the quicker it is and the more transparent it is. So I think that made a lot of difference.
This is a very interesting point that you made, that the secretariat is generally, the rules are made for a regulatory state. But at some point, the 91 liberalization happens.
There was no sudden change because of 91. Look, the changes after 91 have also been very gradual. It is not that suddenly one fine day liberalization happened and the rules started getting changed. No. It was changing. It was changing gradually. Some states were more progressive. Some states were less progressive. Some chief ministers were very candid about it. Some were less candid about it.
But was there resistance from the bureaucracy because unki to powers जा रही थी ना?
I don't understand what you mean by saying unki powers जा रही थी. क्या powers जा रही थी? Maybe secretariat level पे कुछ हो रहा होगा, but I think the scope expanded. I mean, the scope really expanded. And what is power? Power is the power to block, and power is also the power to ease the flow. I have always felt that there is greater power in letting things flow rather than in blocking them. So it's a matter of perception. So when you are, you see, officers and and some people down the line who are into the business of making money. And there are people who they would hate a more liberal regime. For example, take the case of boiler inspectors. Assumption is that if there are no boiler inspectors, the factory manager, factory owner will not take care of the boiler. But why don't we realize that if the boiler breaks down, the factory suffers much more than what the government will suffer? So why can't we entrust the safety of the boiler to the owner of the factory? Now, when you have a boiler inspector, you're not doing much. So this whole notion of inspection and control, that is a notion that has to change, and that is a notion which, when it changes, a lot of people, the boiler inspector does lose his power, the labor inspector does lose his power. So all these people lose power, but at the very top, it's actually empowerment, So, so I have always looked at it in terms of empowerment, So, but there is resistance. There is resistance.
Was there resistance? And I want to ask a more perhaps theoretical question, which is that the opening up of the economy, did it change the nature of the bureaucracy or what was expected of it?
In fact, I think liberalization happened because there were a lot of bureaucrats who were very, very keen to bring about this change. See, whether you look at, and very positive ministers, I mean, take Arun Shourie, for instance, and amongst bureaucrats, I mean, whether it's Mr. Pillai or whether it is, the Commerce Secretary, Kullar. So a lot of there's Mr. Bajal, Mr. P.K. Basu, there were a lot of liberal people who were convinced that yes, the nation needs to open up. So when there was in fact, there was less resistance from the bureaucracy about opening up than from the political class, because what do we lose? See, whether the DM is powerful or the municipal commissioner is powerful or the joint secretary is powerful, how does it affect me? I am going to be there in all the three positions, right? I mean, how does it matter to me? So this kind of a conflict which is there, and in fact, the conflict It is the CM who wants the DM to be more powerful. Because the DM is no threat to the CM, but the minister is. The Zilla Panchayat Adhyaksh is. The fact is that a powerful mayor is a threat to the chief minister.
Correct.
A powerful, a good, competent DM is no threat to the CM. Where am I and where is Mamata Banerjee? There is no comparison. But the agriculture minister to Mamata Banerjee can pose a threat to Mamata Banerjee. The industries minister can pose a threat to Mamata Banerjee. Not to Mamata Banerjee because she's cut above the rest of cabinet colleagues. But you get what I'm trying to say.
And I think what I also understand is that, there's this really remarkable book on the bureaucracy written by David Potter. I feel you would have read it. So usme he argues that the relationship between the political leadership and the bureaucrats is one of both
this book
conflict.
was written in 1984 or 82, right?
But I think
he had said, his theory has been proven wrong completely. Because he had said that with the coming in of the 73rd, 74th Amendment and all these things, and the greater thing, the bureaucracy will lose its sheen, people will no longer be interested. That has not happened.
That has not happened.
In fact, now let me bring you to another recent book that I read, Manas Ghosh's book on Mujibur Rahman and all these things. You see, one of the reasons for the breakup, or not breakup is not the right word, one of the reasons why Bangladesh has failed is because they disempowered their bureaucracy. What the communists were doing here, when the party becomes very powerful and the DMs become weaker, in the short run, the party can gain. In Bangladesh, this is what happened. And Bangladesh had the double problem of, we have a great advantage. आज state में है, कल center में है, फिर किसी तीसरी state में है, फिर किसी UN assignment में है, फिर कभी study leave पे है. So the control of the politician or the state level politician on the IAS is there, but it's not a profound impact. I can always go for study leave, I can do this, I can do that. I know that I can come to Government of India. But in Bangladesh, when the Awami League politicized the functioning of the zillas by making up-zilla panchayats and giving a lot of powers to the elected officials, that is why the police in Bangladesh and the administration in Bangladesh became so partisan. And if you notice, the protests have been police officers were being lynched in Bangladesh because of the very, very partisan attitude which they are shown.
Partisan attitude की अगर बात करें तो the West Bengal government, the cadre that you come from, and the center, particularly now, have a very fraught relationship. और ये बात हमेशा उठती रहती है that West Bengal cadre officers barely are either allowed to come to the center or want to come to the center.
No, I think we want to come to the center. The CM is not very encouraging of that thing, and that is where I think and I have written about it and I have argued about it that we should not be the movement to the center should be a matter of right. It is not a matter of favor either of the state government or the Government of India. And there I think the Government of India is also equally at fault by not taking officers. You see, after completing 11 years of service, an officer must compulsorily be brought to the Government of India.
But when I think the center came up with certain rules, that central deputation has to be made compulsory.
Why should it be called? In fact, I would say, why should it be deputation? It's my right to work in the Government of India. If I do not have a right to work in the Government of India, then how am I an All India Service Officer? As the IAS Association Secretary and Vice President for some time, I have always argued that, look, it is my right to work in that. I am against this whole process of empanelment because when you do not empanel a person, you are basically saying that now you are, and it's a very strange argument. This means that you are not good enough. If you're not good enough, then you're not good enough to be anywhere.
To serve in the state
you
also.
Cannot say that you are not good enough to work in Government of India, but you're okay to be Chief Secretary of a state. What kind of message are we doing? And when you do not empanel an officer, you're basically telling him that you are now confined to the state, which I think it's wrong.
So very quickly, empanelment for our viewers is the process wherein the center shortlists a certain number of officers who can then be eligible to serve in the center.
As Joint Secretary and above.
Correct, as Joint Secretary and above.
But you see, this system of empanelment has been opaque from a long time. We suddenly got a letter saying that we've been empaneled. as joint secretaries. We're happy about it, but we didn't know why others have not been impaneled. You know, and if the criterion is just the SERs of the last few years, then this is what has led to a lot of ACR inflation. I mean, everybody is now
ACR is
9.5
the
annual confidential report. So if you give, if you're giving, and now there are pluses and minuses about complete transparency. If you work with an officer and you've given him a low grade, then how do you make him or her work? So it's led to its own set of. So my own feeling is that as far as empanelment is concerned, because you're a member of the All India Services, you have the right to work in both the center and the state. And at the end of a particular number of years, you must compulsorily work for the center. And at the end of that period, you must compulsorily go back to the state government. No favors given, no questions asked. That is the only way it will be an All India Service. You have examples of people who have never wanted to come to Government of India, who never stepped out of Calcutta. They've been in and around Calcutta. They've become chief secretaries, which is also wrong. Why should they not go to Delhi?
Coming back to West Bengal, tell us some instances when you were working with Mamata Banerjee. How was she as a chief minister, as a political leader?
See, as far as I was her agriculture secretary, I was DG ATI, and then I was secretary industries. So I had what should I say? I mean, she was once upset with me after I had given a speech at the Civil Services Day, in which I had said, that while the political leadership has expectations from us and we must fulfill them, we as a civil service also have certain hopes from our political leadership that our professional and personal growth be on an even keel. So, I don't think she should have got upset, but she got upset.
And how did she express her anger?
By posting me as DG ATI, which she thought is a punishment, which for me was
what
not
is DG ATI?
As Administrative Training Institute, which I thought was a great pleasure for me, but in her, you see, that is a question of perception. My driver said, "Ki sir, aapko khude line lagaye," but I was quite happy because for me, being the DG of ATI was a great thing because you interact with young people. You have a lot of time to read books.
But was the transfer order the only evidence of her anger, or did she say something to you?
No, she didn't say anything to me. She didn't say anything. But this is in general parlance, this is thought so. But no, I don't think we met after that. And then I remember I was sitting in the IAC when about 2-3 months later, she said, no, now you're just giving lectures and you're just touring around. You better come and do some work. I said, ma'am, but I'm doing what you asked me to do. She said, no, you come back and you're now industry secretary of the state. I said,
so, ever since 2014, when we've had the Modi government, there has been a lot of, at least rhetorically, a lot of emphasis on bureaucratic reform and in terms of lateral entry, in terms of this empanelment process that we spoke about. And the Prime Minister also famously said...
One sec. Empanelment process is not new.
The 360-degree empanelment process. But also, maybe that's not as important, but the Prime Minister also very famously said that we cannot run a 21st century India using a 19th century administration.
The Prime Minister has also spoken very much about how great the IAS has been. He's also spoken very much about how the IAS has to model itself on the lines of Sardar
But he's
Patel.
also said of the IAS कि ये क्या ताकत बनाकर रख दिया हमने कि fertilizer का कारखाना भी बाबू चलाएंगे, एयरप्लेन भी बाबू उड़ाएंगे.
तो he said that के बाद भी fertilizer secretary भी तो IAS से है और civil aviation secretary भी IAS से.
So that's the question I want to ask. Starting from Nehru, who said at the fag end of his life that one of my greatest regrets has been to not be able to reform the bureaucracy, to Prime Minister Modi, who's spoken very eloquently of bureaucratic reforms. तो ये क्या है कि सारे Prime Minister, सारे political leaders bureaucratic reform की बात करते हैं, but depend उतना ही IAS अफसरों पे करते हैं.
देखिए, ये होता है कि हम कहाँ पे क्या स्पीच दे रहे हैं, right? Because जब भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर हमारे पास आए हैं मसूरी एकेडमी में या आरम प्रोग्राम में, they have always waxed eloquent about how good we are and how the country depends on us. Because मैंने तो 3 आरम प्रोग्राम्स किए हैं हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी के साथ, and he's been very inspirational. He's been saying that आप ही कर्णधार हैं, आप ही चलाएंगे देश को, आप ही सवारेंगे देश को. So it depends on the context. I mean, when a person in power makes a number of statements, those statements have to be seen in a context. Without putting the context into the statement, we cannot really draw any conclusion. The fact is that the service has become the service because of Sardar Patel. Sardar Patel was the one man who knew and felt and believed strongly that you need a strong civil service. Nehru did not believe in a strong civil service. Nehru was, to my mind, thinking that like the Soviet model and the others, I mean, the cadres and the people themselves could bring about, could be in the forefront of things. Mahatma Gandhi, of course, had a very different view. I mean, all the power to the villages and things. Ambedkar, in fact, wanted a strong state. So Ambedkar and Patel were together in wanting a strong state. I've studied Mr. Shastri in greater detail.
Yes.
Mr. Shastri was very, talked about the IAS, talked about reforms in the IAS, wanted the IAS officers to spend more time in the districts, has made a reference that, the work of the district is expanded, therefore we need many more people there. So Indira Gandhi again depended a lot on the bureaucracy, and sometimes, so it's there. So it's a given situation. I mean, we IAS officers, and like if you talk to IAS officers, we're also very critical of politicians. I'm sure they're also very critical of us. So it's a good relationship. I think it's a relationship which is fraught with a little bit of tension, as there ought to be.
Yeah.
There ought to be a little bit of tension, between the bureaucracy and the...
It's both conflict and dependency.
Yeah.
Right. Sir, I'll wind up now. Your time at LBSNAA, it was like coming a full circle, because one starts as a probationer, as a trainee at LBSNAA, and then you ended your career as the director of LBSNAA. Tell us a little bit about what your vision of training IAS officers was. What do you think is the one thing, not the one thing, but what is,
no, I think
what should IAS officers...
the IAS officers must learn to work in a team. That's the first thing. That, the individual excellence has been tested by the UPSC. There's no doubt about it that you are bright. But what we got to understand is that it's a team game. That your individual excellence is important. But unless your excellence is part of a team, you will not be able to achieve much. And that part of the team is not just exclusive to the IAS. It is the IAS working together with the IPS, working together with the income tax, working together with the state civil service, working together with the agriculture expert, working together with the forester, working together. So team building and, inspiring your team, that's one. Second is the ability to listen to many different points of view. And that's what I learned from, I had this thing in my mind earlier also, but working on Lal Bahadur Shastri made it very clear that we have to be able to reconcile a lot of different opinions. Listen. Because a lot of problems cannot be solved. But by listening, you at least begin to empathize. And what also happens is that when you listen, then to a large extent you understand what is there in the mind of the other person. And the third very important aspect is communication, non-adversarial communication, because you can't do a thing, you don't have to be very brusque about it, except in law and order situation. Law and order situation, you have to put your foot down and say, nothing more.
I have to ask you this before we wrap up. जहाँ तक communication की बात है, and obviously the people who are coming to LBSNAA now are also a social media generation. We are
trying to cut it down.
Yeah, that's what I want to get your views on. Is it a good thing?
It's not a good thing, because as I said earlier, we are umpires. We are the groundsmen. We are not batsmen. We don't have to put our profile as batsmen. We are there to ensure that the game is played well.
So an IAS officer should not try to be a celebrity.
We should not try to be celebrity. If the situation demands, for instance, now there are floods in Uttarkashi, right? So at this point of time, the DM of Uttarkashi, the SP of Uttarkashi, the disaster management, the DG of disaster management in Uttarakhand, they should be up. They should be there. Their channel should be on. Their X should be on. They should be visible. They should be visible because there's a crisis situation, so they should be there. And we must make a difference between what you are achieving as an individual and what you are achieving as the head of an institution, right? I cannot take credit for what's happening in the academy, because the academy is an institution, right? So so there's a difference between an institution becoming important, institution becoming central, institution becoming salient to governance and individual becoming salient to governance. I think that's a fine line that we have to draw.
So all these social media stars, they need to kind of lower down their profiles.
I think from the last few years, it's coming down. The government has been advising them not to do it.
Yeah. This has been such a fascinating conversation, sir. And there are so few officers, IAS officers, who can also wear the hat of a historian. So that's why it's always so fascinating to talk to you, because you can wear both those hats. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.